I said I wanted Americans to have their voices heard. I have done that. I have no regrets. And although I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in.
After only one Super Tuesday win, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley has dropped out of the race for the White House. She made the announcement this morning in Charleston.
Haley said that she would continue to push for her conservative ideals, just not as a presidential candidate. Though she congratulated former President Donald Trump on his campaign success, so far she did not endorse him during her speech.
Our Jane Robelo joins us now with more from Haley's announcement. Jane?
Well, Carol and Nigel, Nikki Haley had pledged to stay in the campaign through Super Tuesday, but after her poor showing on the biggest primary day of the year, she did suspend her campaign. Last night, she won Vermont's primary, making her the first Republican female to win a state in a presidential primary. But that wasn't enough to keep her in this race. Former President Donald Trump taking home wins in every other Super Tuesday state. In her speech this morning from Daniel Island, South Carolina, she thanked her supporters while also calling attention to her concerns over the national debt, the quote, dysfunction in Congress, and the importance of the United States supporting Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Haley then urged former President Donald Trump to do what it takes to win over her supporters, but she stopped short of giving him her endorsement.
I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, never just follow the crowd, always make up your own mind.
Nikki Haley also said that Republicans must now bind together as Americans and turn away from, quoting, the darkness of division. And following today's announcement, the question becomes, what is next for Nikki Haley? Our Peyton Furtado joins us live now. And Peyton, what are the political analysts saying about that?
Yeah, Jane, it's a great question. Brent Nelson from Furman University says he's going to be keeping tabs on Haley after all of this, and he doesn't think we've seen the last of her on the national or state stage.
She was quite successful. I think the problem in this race was that you have a near incumbent.
After dropping out of the Republican presidential race Wednesday morning, Haley wished former President Donald Trump well as his campaign continues.
It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that.
While the Republican nomination is nearly certain, Haley's political future is not. Furman professor Brent Nelson says it could depend on how strongly Haley chooses to endorse the former president.
Or she could just not endorse Trump at all, which would make it more difficult for her to run for office in the future.
Even if she does endorse former President Trump, Nelson thought it unlikely he would offer her the vice presidential nomination or that she would accept it.
But would Nikki Haley accept a position in the administration? Now, that's possible. Maybe as high as Secretary of State, or being an ambassador to some place important like China or Germany or Japan, Russia.
Haley was the first Republican woman to win a state in the primaries. And while she won't win the nomination this year,
what she did was point out to Republicans what Donald Trump's weaknesses are.
Nelson says that might be enough for her to secure it later on, especially if President Joe Biden beats Trump. And a lot can happen between right now and the 2028 election way down the road. Nelson says with that in mind, he could see Haley running again, maybe even 2 more times for the presidency. Live in Greenville, I'm Peyton Furtado, WYFF News 4.
Peyton, thank you. President Joe Biden's campaign released a statement following Nikki Haley's announcement this morning. It reads in part, quote, Nikki Haley was willing to speak the truth about Trump, about the chaos that always follows him, about his inability to see right from wrong, about his cowering before Vladimir Putin, end quote. The president's statement went on to call on her supporters to support him in November, saying he knows they will not agree on some things, but hopes they can find common ground.
Remember, WYFF News 4 is your home for Commitment 2024 coverage. As we move closer to the general election, we will keep you informed on the delegate counts, the candidate campaign stops on WYFF4.com and the mobile app.